Here we go. I'm here with my good friend Calvin.
Oh, I'm dog sitting. That's Simon the corgi. It's okay. He's precocious, fearless. She's a ham.
So, this man right here is a hero in my book. I saw him jump right in when nobody else would, where I work back in 2014, right? Yes.
Going on 4 years, 3 or 4 years.
Yes. Yeah. Please tell everyone about that experience, if you would.
Well, it's an experience that anybody can identify with. You're out shopping at a supermarket, and a couple of aisles away, you hear obviously a managerial voice yelling, "Does anybody know? No, call 911 first." And I thought, oh, something's going on. I didn't run over yet because I figured they're calling 911. She's handling it. And then I heard the call. Does anybody know CPR? And I do. I've had experience in medical, surgical, hospital units, but you know, every time we had a code there, it was always under clinical conditions. Other personnel around were doing the chest compressions and breathing, and then we knew the crash cart was coming to defibrillate. This was my first in the field, and it had been a couple of decades since, but you know, it's like anything else. Your muscular memory kicks in and your experience kick in. So I put down my red shopping basket over by the nuts, I remember, and I ran over, and this woman had dropped.
It was in the frozen aisle.
Yeah, she had dropped dead in the frozen aisle, and I was 2 aisles over, and I went running over, and somebody was doing what they thought because they hadn't been trained. And this is, I hope, the takeaway of this is everybody get trained. Call the Red Cross. I'll do a pitch now and later. Call the Red Cross, find out where you can learn CPR, and it's really not hard. But she obviously hadn't had training, and she was attempting CPR, waiting for the medics to come, but I offered to spell her because I had some experience, and it all just comes back to you. It's been 20 years, but I did the compressions right, and these days, folks, you don't have to do the breathing. That used to be in the early days of CPR a turnoff. People didn't want to do mouth-to-mouth with a stranger, who might be vomiting, by the way, because heart attacks sometimes cause you to vomit. It's just a reality. We're all human, and get used to it. If your parents, hey, you're used to babies' bodily functions. But here's a stranger, and you just kick in. So if you do the compressions right, though, you can hear the lung and the breath sounds, too. So with every compression, I could hear this woman. So I knew that she was not only getting the circulation that's important, but oxygenating what blood was going into her lungs. So obviously it bought her some time because just kind of like in a movie is the way I can describe it, she came back. Her eyes were kind of dilated, but she was breathing on her own, and I felt her pulse. You know, you take these 2 fingers and put it right down and find it. And then I felt a tap on my shoulder, and I looked, and there were blue pant legs, and I followed up, and there was this EMT, and she had her hand on my shoulder, and she said, "You did good." So I reached up, I remember this, and the adrenaline was starting. I took her hand down, took her fingers, put it on that woman's pulse, and I passed her off. And I went back over to Nuts and picked up my red basket, and then I was in checkout, and I remember this part, my card, trying to get it up, the adrenaline was making me all shaky. So, and then for a few days after that, I kind of had like moments when I thought about what happened after. They wheeled her out she was breathing, her heart was beating, but I haven't heard since what happened. I heard some talk in the store that she was a regular client. But anyway, the takeaway is get to know CPR. You never know when you're going to come upon a situation when you need to do it. And sometimes it's coupled with a basic first aid course. Sometimes it's not all blood. Sometimes it's recognizing when somebody needs just to have their legs elevated to prevent shock. Something as simple as that. And of course, now we're all supposed to carry Narcan.
All right, everybody, I'll get on it, I promise. You too. I'm queasy as hell about that sort of shit. I did state I never have even thought about going into the medical field, but you know. So, Calvin, you've been the host of your own television program for quite some time,
Well,
or you haven't been doing it for a while now. But
well, you call it being on hiatus, but
you're on hiatus
for the past 2 or 3 years, and for community access television, which is really everybody's TV. The thing is it's got a limited telecast in whatever city or municipality you live in, but a lot of times they're launched on YouTube, and you can use it as a platform for your own art. You can have discussion programs. I mean, anything. I mean, this is the whole thing. Is community access TV is membership driven. Whatever the member wants to do within the very few legal guidelines, we find out that we can do more on cable than they can do on network. Am I giving away too much? I hope I'm just piquing your interest, because wherever you live, I happen to live in Lynn, and we have Lynn Community TV in Lynn, Massachusetts. But Marblehead's got their own, and I think Swampscott has their own community access. See,
I grew up with it at the high school where I went to.
It's an FCC, Federal Communications mandated rule. They have to provide not only public programming to municipalities through the cable system, but allow citizens to have access. This is what Wayne's World was all about. Remember Wayne's World, Community Access Television from Aurora, Illinois, which is ironically where my parents are from. My roots are in Rutabagoville. Anyway, oh, remember Bohemian Rhapsody the first time around? They're in the car, and then the headbanging, everybody at once. Okay, well, and they were doing doing it from their basement, remember? And then Chicago picked up on it and said, my God, they got a high following. So they, I think, tried to buy the rights and make it more urban instead of...
Did you ever meet Len Kaplan? Len Kaplan?
Len Kaplan, no.
Because he ran the Swampscott cable studio when I was going to Swampscott High School. It was in the Swampscott High School, and he's had a show on cable access for years called Wrestling Talk, all about WWE, formerly WWF wrestling.
You know, I think I might have channel surfed and come across that.
Yep.
Does he sit with a buddy? There's two guys.
Yeah.
I think Lynn carries it. Lynn Community Access TV. Yes, I've seen that. Yes. Then there's somebody else who sits with a mask on, and he talks about wrestling, I think.
Yeah.
But,
so tell us what your focus on what your show has been about, and
it's always informational, but with a little bit of entertainment. You know, we got a lot of local artists trying to emerge here in Lynn. Entertainment, performance artist types. We have a lot of traditional canvas artists, sculptures, craft people. Between Lynn Arts and the Lydia Pinkham building and a lot of little studios in between, Lynn is replete as a north with all kinds of opportunities to get some. There's still some cheap artist enclave spaces up. But it's become a source and a destination now for people who want to see a nice traditional New England city reinvented as an arts and cultural destination. I mean, look at Portland.
Lowell too, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, there was a diamond in the rough, and then the late Senator Tsongas at the time says, I'm going to do what I can and focus on Lowell because it's the center of my district. It's the biggest socioeconomic one. It's got the history, and it's got infrastructure, which is beautiful. The brick city, the canals, the industrial revolution, use of the river running through town. And
birthplace of Jack Kerouac.
Yeah, who else? Betty Davis, I think, is from Lowell. Oh, Johnny Carson's sidekick, Ed McMahon's from Lowell.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
There must be more.
You are correct, sir.
Oh, you know who else is from Lowell? Mark Goddard. He played Major Don West in the old Austin Space series. You could probably do a search for it and see my interview with him.
Wow. So, I was born in this city, and I grew up hearing the refrain. And my parents moved us over to Swampscott shortly after I was born. Right. Tell us the refrain.
I don't even say it.
Oh, you can't say it.
No, I don't.
Oh, interesting.
We put it to bed.
Okay.
But I did found when I came to town 19 years ago. Within the first 2 years, I founded an activist group for taking little places that are kind of fallow and you're usually, I hate to say it, public owned lots. And we started to beautify them. We call it the Gateway Project for Lynn, because all these little places are invariably gateways to the neighborhood. So we became activists in that regard. And I came up with the slogan, Lynn, the city that's in.
Ah, I like that. Yeah, I mean, I don't, it's funny because there was a period where I was going to Swampscott Junior High School at the time. It wasn't Swampscott Middle School yet. And because my parents had divorced and I was staying with my father, because I sided with him as a young man becoming adolescent and, you know, looking to his father, my dad went to live in the highlands of Lynn with his mom, my grandmother, Anne. So I followed him there, and so there was a year period when I was walking through Lynn from Swampscott every day.
Oh,
and
I know
it was
up over Essex Street and up over the hill.
Yeah.
Oops,
No, there's the
this
landline.
Is some kind of live. I have a landline. There's probably somebody trying to sell me some way of. I think this one is probably Rachel telling me that I have one chance left to do better on the school loans that I paid off 40 years ago.
So tell us about Udall for president, please. The poster above your head.
Udall, back in 1976. Mo Udall was the congressman.
That's the year I was born.
Oh, okay, 76. Well, 75 was the campaign building up. In New Hampshire, where I'm from, you get your feet wet as a political activist early, and it's usually with gubernatorial races, etc. But my forte was always president. I go back to incessantly insistent. Oh, this is Cinema Verical. Hello. Yes. Oh, I know. That's my Kyle. You're parking in his parking space.
Oh,
we're getting this live. This is so cool. This is going to be launched on. Okay, just park in the street. It's fine. Bye. No. It's Grand Central Station here. Anyway, back to Udall.
getting a shot of Lynn here.
Okay. In 1975, going into the 76 presidential race, in New Hampshire, of course, that's where there's a multitude of candidates. We might have 20 this year, but this year I remember there was 12, I think. And every year there's what I call the Bernie Sanders one, the one that's kind of a popular one that doesn't do things the conventional way because they're trying to be a little bit out. Like, for example,
Jerry Brown.
He was
during the
92,
92.
1980.
Remember the 92? I remember going to New Hampshire for the 92.
Well, I remember when Jerry Brown ran for president in 1980.
Okay.
So I'm very old.
Yeah. Yeah, well, so.
I have lore.
I'm old, he's very
I remember
old.
when he had hair. He had hair. He used to date Linda Ronstadt, for God's sakes. He was the
current
sexiest
governor of California, right?
Yeah. Well, he's just not running again, or
he's a lame duck.
Replaced, I think, or something.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's get back to Udall.
Yes.
Well, Morris Udall was congressman from a district in Arizona. Now, his brother Stuart Udall used to have the congressional seat, but John F. Kennedy made him Secretary of the Interior, Stuart Udall. And he's the one that protected things like Cape Cod National Seashore and a lot of things that before Kennedy and Udall, that would be all condos now, privately owned, no public access. What a travesty. So anyway, so Udall ran for president. When we went around the country, we had different, I ran his Cheshire County, New Hampshire office and got to be kind of friends with the congressman. Jimmy Carter ended up with the nomination that year, but we were the one who was always the last one standing. We were the Bernie Sanders that year, nipping away at Hillary, 2 years ago. Well, there's always one of them. I was with Gary Hart 8 years later, and he was the one that was nipping away at Mondale. It was him and Gary at the convention. So it was us, just Mo Udall and Jimmy at the convention. And I went to convention in 1976, Democratic convention at Madison Square Garden in New York, as his first elected delegate, because I was the top vote getter on the New Hampshire primary, pledged to him. And the way they apportioned the delegates in New Hampshire It's not winner take all. See, every state has their own rules. See what a Byzantine political system both of these established parties have. But don't get me started.
Hey, we're getting to the 15-minute mark here. Hold on. Let me just pause it here, and we're going to continue on and do a. You want to do 15 minutes more?
Yeah, we can.
Or maybe just 5 minutes more?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll wrap this up.